If you're like me, you like Twitter, but you're disappointed by the way it's devolved into factional politics. We need to bring Twitter back to what made Twitter fun in the first place, which was random nonsense and whimsical bots doing silly things. If you were around, you will remember there were some really amusing bots in the early days of Twitter. There was the T100 bot that would look around for people named Sarah and ask them, "Are you Sarah Connor?" And another one that was called Horace eBooks that would just tweet out of context quotes from, I don't know what. It was just weird stuff that it would be tweeting, and half of it would be really funny. So I want to combine these two and make a bot called the Horace Whisperer, which is going to look for people named Horace and send random quotes at them. And I've been doing some testing. This is actually really, really funny. So even if you don't have any interest in doing nonsense on Twitter or Twitter itself, you're going to learn a lot of seriously important Python principles in this video. So join me and let's get into it. So throughout these videos, we've been using other people's modules or packages, and I'd like to show you how you can make your own and why you would want to, because you can really keep your code much cleaner if you're putting it inside of your own packages. So to do that, all we have to do is think of a name and make a folder of that name in our project folder. It's as simple as that, but it's not as simple as it seems, because what are you going to call this thing, right? You get bonus points if you include pi somewhere in the name. So that can be tricky, and there's a website that helps me out a lot. I use the free dictionary. You just type in PI, word finder contains PI in the word. And I like to stick to around 8 letters or so and try to find something that fits the project. And I found the perfect one for this. Epigraph, which is an inscription on a building or a statue, a quotation at the beginning of a book or chapter. We're going to be doing weird quotes. This is perfect. So all we have to do is go in here and make a new folder and call it Epi. I nearly typed it. Graph. And now in here we create a dunderinit.py. And that's it. We just created a package. And this has a lot of upsides to it. So let's make another file. We'll do this one for our quotes.py. And we'll just do a basic little get quote that'll return some quote. Now, let's go back to our init. This is where we want to put our main declaration. So if name equals main, then we do stuff. If this is the main thing that's being run, then we do the things. So how do we get the quotes files function into this? By simply doing a from, now remember the name of our package, dot quotes, import, get quote. And I will print out whatever this does. And sure enough, we got some quote. This is the thing that was running, and it printed the output from some other file. This is a really, really key thing to take home, okay? We're going to break off all of our functions into specific files related to those functions so that we're not just putting everything in one big file and making a mess out of everything. So how do we actually get the quotes, though? This is where this video is going to be so much easier than the last one, because previously we didn't have nice APIs to work with. We had to scrape IMDb, and that was a pain in the ass. Fortunately, for this whole video, we're going to be using sane APIs, which are so easy to use. Oh my God, these are some of the easiest to use. And because they're so easy to use, we can actually use other people's packages to make our life even easier. So for the quotes, we're going to use Wikipedia's API, and we're going to use the wiki quote package to do that. Now, there's a wiki quotes, and that's slightly different. You want to specifically get the wiki quote one, and we install that by doing a pip install wiki quote. And that's it. It's now installed here. We can use it, and we can really get just a whole bunch of easy stuff by just doing wiki quote quotes. That's it. Okay, now that's not quite it. It expects us to give it a name of a title that it's going to get the quotes from. So we need like a movie or a book or whatever. Fortunately, we have a way of doing that very easily too. There's another function here called wiki quote random titles. And so this is going to give us a random title, and we can just take one of those random titles and stuff it into the quotes. But let me show you what it's actually giving us right now, because it's not going to work out quite as we'd like. See, it's giving us a whole bunch of different titles, and it's in a list. So we need to somehow get just one of those titles. And fortunately, we can do that with the random, which is a built-in function, or a built-in package. So we don't have to do a pip install on this one. It's got a function that does random choice, where if you give it a list, and this is a list, see how it's got the square brackets and it's separated by commas, that's a list. If you give it a list, it's going to pick one thing and give it back to you when you're using this choice function. So now, instead of 20 random things, we've got Stanford University. Okay, don't know what we're going to get from that, but we can give that a shot. So let's see what happens when we take our randomly chosen title and we stuff that into wiki quote quotes. We got another list. Yeah, it is a list, but it's only got one entry. And I'm not printing out what the title is. We don't know where this is coming from, but throughout history, people have never been before expected to be as comfortable as people do today. God, that touched me, right? So we've got a thing that's giving us quotes, but if I do this another time, it's going to give us like a whole bunch of random things. Like, see this one, it's got a whole lot of different entries. We don't want to have all of these entries, and some of these entries we definitely do not even want. Like, see, this has a name and then colon space. So this is obviously some dialogue from a movie or something like that. We don't want to do dialogue. What we're looking for specifically are pithy quotes like that first one that we can just randomly send at Horace's that are going to just seem so out of left field that they don't know what the hell is going on. If we send dialogue at them, they know what's going on. That's not fun. So let's clean this up. Make a def raw quotes. And we'll just do a empty list called quotes. Now, I haven't used any whiles before. Whiles are really cool because this is a way to create a loop that it'll keep on doing whatever you put underneath it until some condition is true. And remember, conditions are things like if, but instead of saying if, we're saying while. And in this case, I'm going to say the length of quotes is equal to 0. I want it to keep cycling through until it gets some quotes, because it could, if it's doing this random title, random quote thing, it can sometimes hit on a title that doesn't have any quotes associated with it. So we're going to assign quotes to whatever this gets. And if the title that we're using doesn't have any quotes, it'll assign an empty list to it, which will return as a 0 when it's at this loop. So it'll loop through this again until it finally gets quotes. And then we can return the quotes. So let's check the quotes to make sure that they're good. And we're going to call this a different empty list, but we're basically be doing a similar thing here where we're making an empty list. And while the length of this list is empty or 0, we're going to keep going through it until we get what we want. So the way that this is going to work is I'm going to say for quote in raw quotes up here, we want to check to see if any of these are useful to us. So we need to make some conditions. Like if the length of the quote is less than 223, I think is what we needed, because we need to leave space for the, like when you're doing a tweet, it needs to be under a certain character limit. And we can use length to do that sort of thing on strings. Like we've been using length on lists, but we can also use it on strings. Like a string is A, B, C, D. And if we do a length on that, we're going to get 4. So we can use the length on on strings and lists. We can use it in all kinds of different ways. So we want to have a quote that is less than 223 characters. So we're not sending, like if you send a tweet that's too big, it'll reject it. And we want to also make sure that the colon space isn't in the quote, or not in quote, so that we're not doing any of that dialogue that I didn't want to show. So we can also get really fancy with this. So in math, you're used to this idea of one item is less than or greater than another thing. In Python, we can actually make this even cooler by doing 30 less than length of quote less than 223. So what we're saying here is the length of this quote should be greater than 30, but less than 223. So that's really handy. And if all of these things are true, let's add that by doing an append on our my quotes list. So now this should give us a nice clean list. Let me see what we got here. Yeah, I'll print this out. And we'll just check quotes here and see what happens. All right, I should have told it that we only wanted English quotes. I think that it was lang equals en. Let's try that. Well, that's not what I was expecting, but we got there. Let's see what else we had. All right, so I've been testing this to make sure that we're getting English results, and this one's perfect, right? It is easier to tear down a code than to put a new one in its place. God, I'm feeling that right now. Doing code on live like this is tricky. So we are generating a list of quotes that we like. So now we can do another random. And in this case, this just happened to be a single one in this list, but it is a list. So we want a random choice of whatever we're getting from the check quotes, which is pulling from the raw quotes up here. So I want to really emphasize how we're doing this, right? We're using one function inside of another function inside of another function, but all of that is resulting in some really clean code. Like this is it. Like we just call this get quote thing and it does all the stuff for us. It's making a line because it wants a blank space at the end of the file. Oh yeah, and this should actually return my quotes. And we don't want to print that out. So let me run through it one more time just to really emphasize this point, okay? Check quotes is being called by this get quote, which is being called from our main. And when it gets to here, it's saying, okay, well, I've got a little empty list. I need to go through a list of quotes from raw quotes, and raw quotes is just going to keep on giving them new quotes every single time that it goes through this list until my quotes finally has some quotes we can use that are in English. So we've got the quoting done. I run this now and we've got a single thing. You notice it doesn't have those square brackets or a whole big list of things. You see, that is just some completely random nonsense. That's perfect. The system's working. All right, now we got to move on to Twitter. And we're going to make an entirely new file that's just going to be for our tweeting. And for this, we're going to need a couple of imports. We're going to need a tweepy and YAML. Now, tweepy is... Now, let me get this installing while I talk about it. Pip install, and you can do multiple ones at once here. PyYAML is the one to get the YAML thing here. tweepy is a great package for interacting with the Twitter API. Like, it makes life so simple. You're going to be amazed at how easy it is to tweet with this. And YAML is like XML, but it's much more modern and it just looks way cleaner. Like, this is... If you've looked at XML, it's a pain in the ass to try to read as a human, but YAML is human readable, so that's a nice bonus. So, trying to think of how to approach this. There's a couple of very important things we need to go over. So, to actually do any of this, you're going to need to make an account that you want to do all this tweeting from. You can use your personal account. It doesn't matter. But once you make the account, you need to go to developer.twitter.com and sign up as a developer. And this is totally free. They're going to ask you for a phone number just to verify that you're like an actual person that's doing this. And there's going to be a whole lot of random questions, most of which you can just say, like, I'm a hobbyist and leave me alone. I'm not doing any of this weird stuff with your data. Like, you can just click no to a lot of this. But once you go through that, they're going to give you some keys and tokens. And these are the keys and tokens that you use to do all of this interacting with the API. And they're really, really strange looking keys, or strings that are full of numbers and letters and all this. But I don't want to show you my keys and tokens, and you don't want to show your keys and tokens to anyone else. So it's really important that you do not put what we call secrets inside your code, because as soon as you share your code with anyone, like if you upload it anywhere or put it on GitHub or something, then you've just leaked your own secrets out into the world. That's a bad move. Like, so we're going to put our secrets into a YAML file. Now, to understand why we're doing that, though, I need to explain dicts. And I'm just going to make this a really, really quick dictionary explanation. So a dict is simply accomplished by naming something equals and then these curly brackets. And then you do a key, a value, which you can think of as a term and then a definition. Whoops. Just like a dictionary works, right? Like you have a word and then there's some definition to that word. And dicts can be everything. Like you can throw all kinds of different stuff in here. You just like, what's favorite number? And I can say 8. And then now I've got strings in here and I've got a integer in here. Like it doesn't care what kind of object we're throwing at it for the most part. We can do favorite colors, and now we can put in a whole list like red and blue. Like that is a Python list that I'm stuffing inside of this Python dict. So dicts are really, really useful. And like I really want to drive home how fundamental these are, because they're all over Python. Okay, we're going to be using a lot of these, and we're going to be making one immediately to stuff our secrets into. But we're going to be doing that inside of a YAML file that's going to be loaded as a dict. So to do this, we just make a new file, and we're going to call this secrets.yaml. And then we need to, for YAML, we don't do the quotes on the key. So we just say this is the consumer key. And that's going to be just like a whole bunch of random shit like that. And the consumer secret is going to be a whole bunch of random shit like this. And then we've got our access key, which likewise is just randomness. And then our access secret. All right. So we now have a YAML file full of our secrets. Importing it is super easy with the YAML package here. So we do a file opener with a with open secrets.yaml, and we're reading this. So we do an R as file. And now we want to say that secrets equals YAML load file read. So it's going to read this file, load it up into this function of the YAML package. And oh yeah, it's complaining because I need to tell it the loader. Wait. Yeah, loader equals. Yeah, equals YAML loader. I think that's right. Let me double check this. Go back to our init file here, and I'm gonna from epigraph.tweeter now import tweet this, and we can comment out the get quote for right now because we're not going to use that, and tweet this. Let's see if that works. Yes, okay, we did get all of that nonsense that I put in there, and it loaded it up. So, we got... Let me show you why this is so cool. Like, we can address all of that nonsense by its name. So if I want the consumer key, I just say, give me the consumer key inside of the secrets. And you see how this is plain English that I'm speaking, right? Like, just give me this thing inside of this dictionary, and it gives me that craziness without me knowing what the craziness is or worrying about some kind of arcane way of getting to the craziness. It's as simple as me giving it a term, a name, and it giving me the definition. It's so powerful. So we got that. We got it working. Now we can load up the Twitter API with our secrets and stuff. So to do that, we're going to need an authenticator. So we're going to do a Tweepy OAuth handler. And it's telling me I need to give this a consumer key. Like, Twitter is going to expect a consumer key when it's doing this OAuth, which is something we'll probably deal with later. OAuth is a way for computers to talk to each other and authenticate one another. And we do that with API keys. And in this case, they call it the consumer key. So from our secrets, consumer key, and then we need our secrets, consumer secret. And once we have that, we need to set an access token. You only have to do this step if your bot is going to be tweeting, and my bot is going to be tweeting. So I'm going to have to give it now the secrets access key. And like, all of these terms might sound weird, but these are the terms that Twitter is using. So they'll make sense when you're going through this. So you'll be, oh yeah, the consumer secret, obviously. So we're going to give it that. And then we're going to do secrets access secret. And now we've got this auth thing. We can actually interact with the API by saying that API equals tweepy.api, and it wants this auth thing that we've created. Now, I know that sounds like we've been doing a lot of stuff, but that's really just 3 lines that have just opened up the whole world of Twitter to your programming. And I mean, like, we can... here, I'll do a quick tweet example here. It's simple as update status, blah. And now tweet this was the thing that it's going to do. Oh, shit. No, that's right. I'm giving it nonsense tokens. Hold on a second. We'll be right back. All right, I've got my real secrets in here now. This should work. And it didn't error, so that's probably a good sign. Let's see what we got here. Blah, it worked. All right. So, as you see, I've been testing this. This is really funny once it gets going. So, tweeting, like the actual process of tweeting was just this one line once we did these 3 lines. Like, it's really easy. It seems complicated and it seems weird, but it's super easy. So now that we have the power of Twitter at our disposal, we can get in here and find all of the Horaces that we're looking for. And Horace sounds like it's probably a Latin root, so we're going to use Hori, get Hori as the plural form of Horaces. We're going to have to add that to the project level dictionary so that PyCharm doesn't complain. Now, this is, once again, surprisingly and startlingly simple. We're just going to return API, what was it, search users, and then Horace. Like, that's it. So let's see what that returns. Yeah, actually, let's print this out instead of doing our from here. So we got a whole lot of data. Now, fortunately, we don't need to read all of this data. This is just data for PyCharm, or for Python rather, to be using, because this is a Python object that we can iterate through and do all kinds of great stuff with. So once we've got all these Hori, we need to try to get a specific Horace. So find a Horace is going to loop through, like, so for user in get Hori, and we're going to iterate through all of the Horaces in the list that this get Hori is returning. And I'll just show you what this is doing. So we get all of these little things that we can grab. So like screen name, and let's just use that as an example here. Let me. All right. So now here's 20 Horaces, or people that have Horace in their real name or their username or whatever. Like Horace was in some way associated with this person. So let's try to clean up this list up a little bit here. So for user in all of the various Hori, if Horace is in the user's screen name, and we're going to lowercase that. That's a simple thing. You can do all strings, just dot lower, and it makes it a lowercase. We can compare it directly to this lowercase string right here. Or Horace in user name lower. Then we've probably got a Horace that we're dealing with here. We want to do this in another while loop. So Horace equals none. And while Horace is none, we're going to look for a Horace with all that code. And then we're going to assign Horace equals user screen name. Now, you might expect that it's going to break out of that while loop now that we've assigned it, because remember, the while happens until the thing that it's evaluating is no longer true, and Horace is no longer none, so that should stop, but it won't, and I'm going to show you why that is. It's like, if it was going to stop, we would only see one Horace's name here, but we're going to see a lot of Horace's names. And the reason for that is we're still in this for loop. So we want to break out of this for loop. We just do that by typing break. And now we're only going to get one Horace name. So it's going through, it's getting a whole big list of Hori. It's finding the first Horace that it finds, and it compares the name and makes sure that the name is correct. And then it assigns that to Horace, and then it breaks out of this for loop. So when it comes back to the while, it says, oh, well, Horace is no longer none, so I'm just going to stop here altogether. And that's why we only got one Horace name there. So we're getting there, right? Like, we've got a Horace and we've got a quote. Like, we could put this all together and just like let it go. But let's try to be good citizens here, okay? Like, the way that this is set up, if I attach these two things right now, this one Horace would get all of the quotes, and we don't want to pester this one poor guy, okay? Like, that would be pretty mean. And you, honestly, if you're playing along at home, please don't also pick Horace. Like, pick any other name in the world. Like, let's all pick on Horaces. I'm going to try to make sure that I'm not picking on Horaces by making a dupe list. I'm going to keep track of all the Horaces that I pester, so I only tweet at them once. So we're going to use another YAML file with open dupelist.yaml as file, and we're going to call this the dupe list. And once again, we're just doing a YAML load and file read. And God, it really should just default to this. It does default to it, but it complains. So we're giving it the default loader as the loader. And we're going to add dupe list to our project level dictionary. And now this, since we got to actually have to make the file too. Right, so that's just an empty YAML file. Now, we want to check before we add this. Like, this is where we're making the assignment. We're saying this is the Horace we want. We want to make sure that we've never pestered this Horace before. So if user screen name is not in dupe list, then go ahead and do this. Otherwise, just continue on with the for loop. So this is going to break, and I want to show you it breaking because this is something you're going to run into if you do this. Because right now this dupe list is actually empty. Like, it doesn't even know that it's a list because it's just pulling an empty file. We can trick it right now by just putting anything in here, and this dash tells it that it's a list item. So we're just going to do this once here, and you see that it works. We're once again, we're getting this Horace assigned. Now what we want to do is save that we're talking to this Horace. Like before we do anything with him, we want to make sure that we save him to our dupe list so we never spam him again. So we'll dupe list append Horace and then save dupes. And let's make a save dupes function, which is basically the reverse of what we were doing up here. So with open dupe list.yaml, except this time we're going to be in write, so we have to give it a W there, as dupe file, and now we dupe file, write, and here instead of we're loading, what we're going to do is YAML dump, and we give it the dupe list, and it's going to automatically dump that into something that looks like just normal stuff that this can use as a YAML. So let me make sure that that's working. We should see now this guy appear right here in this list. And he does. Now, it's a real trick. If we run this again, we should see an entirely new name because it'll say, oh, well, this guy's already on the list. We shouldn't interact with him anymore. Let's move on to the next one. And we got the next one. Okay, good. So this is working. We can get rid of the anything. And in fact, I'm going to, I've been doing some testing here. I'm going to add in all of the horses I've already pestered in my testing, so that just to make sure that I don't pester them anymore. Like, I really want to emphasize that it's important that when you're doing this kind of goofy shit, that you don't start really bugging people while you're doing it. Like, that's not what we're out for. We're just trying to do something goofy here. Okay. So now we're almost done. There's one more thing that we need to keep in mind here. And that is that, this search for Horace is only giving us 20. So we'll run out of 20 Horaces real fast. But there's fortunately a page argument that we can pass, which will say like a page 1 of 20. So once we've gone through the first page of Hori, we need to go on to the second page, and then it'll give us another list of 20 different Hori. So the way that we can do that is by simply saying that page equals 0. And here, before we send anything to, well, we'll send the page here, but before we send anything to the get Hori, we want to increment this page counter. So we'll do a plus equals 1. Now, whatever this page number is, just got incremented by 1. If this is a 5, it became a 6. If it's 2, it became a 3, whatever. So now, when it's going through, if the dupe list is saying, well, we've already got all of these people on this list, what do? It'll come back to the top of the while and add a new page number to it, and it'll give us an entirely fresh list of Hori. Now, we could try to do like some sort of if the page count is too long, but I've already done the math, and I've looked at how many Hori there are on Twitter. This thing, as long as I only have it running once per day, can run for like 3 years or something before it runs out of Horaces. So I think it's good the way it is right now. Yeah, this is working out exactly as I think. Oh yeah, we want to return Horace, and yeah. So now we need to compose our tweet. So let's change this to payload equals, and we're going to do an F string here. Now, if you're not familiar with Twitter, you @ to mention somebody, and then you need to find a Horace. So let's import find a Horace from our tweeter file. And then we do a space, and then whatever we want as our tweet message. So for this, I'm just going to get a quote. And if you want other people to see your tweets, you need to put something in front of the @ or else it'll be treated as just like you're specifically replying to him. If you put any character in front of the @ it'll show up in your feed so other people can follow along and see what kind of nonsense you're getting up to. And that's really important to me. I want this to be something that everybody can enjoy, not just the Horaces. So we now have a payload, and let's print out that to see what it looks like. Like, this is like one step away from a live fire exercise right here. This is what it's going to tweet out. Oh, right. Okay. Disregard all that. I'll have to clear all my print statements. But so this would be said to this Horace: how much better it is to see men live exactly than to hear them argue with subtlety. Wow, that's profound. I'm sure that Horace Panterart will appreciate this profundity. So let's clear the dupe list up a bit because those guys haven't actually been tweeted at yet. Let me clear out my print statements because we don't actually want to see that, and it's kind of confusing when it does. So now this is now going to become the actual tweeting, which, remember, was as simple as saying update status and then whatever, and that becomes the thing that we tweet. So now, moment of truth. I'm a little nervous. I'm going to delete the print. We're going to just do this live, all right? Tweet this payload. And let's see what happens. We didn't get any errors. That's good. Let's go to Twitter. We got a new message. Oh, god damn it. It's in fucking... It's in a different language. Fuck. Damn it. I knew I was getting that language thing wrong. All right. Hold on a sec. All right. I just double checked the API and I am using it correctly. Like, it's as simple as that. So I don't know why we got something that wasn't English. I'm a little disappointed and I'm not going to let it sit there. So let's do one more. Now let's see what we've got. Well, that's just fucking weird and cryptic. Man, I was getting some great stuff when I was testing this. Of course, when I start to film it, it's less... like, this Horace Austin guy, he got... If we would stand up and be counted on the side of reason, we ought to drop terms like pseudoscience and unscientific from our vocabulary. They're just hollow phrases which do only emotive work for us. Like, that is so insane. Horace Austin has no idea what just came for him. Like, that's just some insane shit that just came at him. And I hope that other people are going to enjoy this too, which is why I'm putting the periods. Like, this is just random stuff going out into the world, being whimsical nonsense. And I think the world needs more whimsy. I hope that you've enjoyed this, and I specifically hope that my first Patreon patron, Benjamin, or possibly Ben Ford, my first patron, I really hope that you appreciated this, and if you would like to become a patron, please join me in supporting my quest to add nonsense and whimsy to the world. Take it easy, folks.